Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Remember, you can't understand the Obama foreign policy without Obama, the postmodern coup, the making of the Manchurian Candidate. And you can get that at Amazon or Progressive Press. Go through the website, Tarpley.net. Tarpley.net, your key to everything. I'll have a few words to say about the new article on Pakistan that's been up there now for several days and which is making some waves around the world. How did this all start with Pakistan? How did the U.S. get in there in the first place? Why do they have all these forces inside Pakistan? Well, that's an interesting story. It goes back to 9/11, of course. September 11th, 2001, U.S. ultimatum to Pakistan. Yes, U.S. ultimatum to Pakistan. This was Colin Powell, the most overrated public figure of recent years, and, of course, a complete failure and a liar in public at the UN in February of 2003. Colin Powell and his top handler, Richard Armitage of the mud, the blood, and the beer, as he said, that he would bring to the State Department. So mud, blood, and beer, Armitage and Colin Powell got together and issued an ultimatum to the government of Musharraf at that time. Musharraf, of course, had been the guy that Mad Dog Bush the Younger could not even identify, didn't know who he was during the campaign. So they gave this ultimatum to the head of the ISI, treating him as the head of state. And the word from Armitage was, listen, Pakistan, either you do this or you will live in the Stone Age. This reminds me of the famous Curtis LeMay, right? Bomb them back into the Stone Age. His formula for Vietnam didn't work, doesn't work. So here are the points in the ultimatum. This is what the U.S. demanded from Pakistan almost 10 years ago. First of all, blanket rights for overflights. Any U.S. planes can fly anywhere they want in Pakistan at any time and landing anywhere they want. 2, access to airports and naval bases and to border control points in the pursuit of al-Qaeda, of course. Intelligence sharing and cooperation. 4, stop fuel shipments to the Taliban, stop Taliban recruiting. It's interesting. It doesn't say anything about stop U.S. payments to the Taliban. Bush had given, $65 million to the Taliban earlier the same year to pay their officials. 5th point, condemn the 9/11 attacks. Say something bad about them in public. 6, stop support for the Taliban and break diplomatic relations with the government in Kabul. 7, stop the al-Qaeda people from doing border operations, stop their shipments, and so forth. So that's the ultimatum that Colin Powell and Armitage made to Pakistan, and Musharraf had to accept that because it was basically, do this or we will bomb you right now. The target of this whole 9/11 thing, in terms of the interior design of 9/11, Pakistan was always the main target. The objection from these left libs in particular, was it's a mistake to reroute this against Iraq. This is not the main thing. It's Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's more like the center of Eurasia rather than this area of Iraq, interesting though it may be for future oil looting. So that's how we got here. That was the rogue network, by the way. That's Armitage representing the rogue network, not the United States, right, leading back to the various Iran-Contra figures, right, the Shockley Kleins types and so forth, Oliver North types from the late 1980s. Now, if we look at the G8, this ship of fools now meeting in Deauville under the aegis of Sarkozy. Remember, Sarkozy grew up in the CIA State Department household of the Wisner family, and that's who he is. He's the first open CIA president of France. Quelle honte, quelle honte, quelle honte. And that scandal against de Villepin is simply designed to remove a credible challenger to Sarkozy. France much better off under de Villepin than under a contemptible foreign puppet like Sarkozy, who is acting more and more like Napoleon III, because that's exactly who he is. He's the demagogic puppet installed by the British, by Edward VII in those days, in or at least kept going by Edward VII in France in those days. So what do we see at this G8? Money is promised to Egypt and Tunisia. Well, don't hold your breath. This has been done in the past. Unlikely that development aid will be forthcoming. Rather, the alarming weakness of the Medvedev line comes to the fore. Medvedev, at this conference, has accepted to put Russia's signature on a statement which says Gaddafi must go. What has this got to do with Russian interest? What concessions did Russia receive in order to do this? Was this just to feel good at the meeting and be accepted in the club, not to be ostracized? Not very good. What it shows us is why the world needs Putin. The world got through the Audis thanks to Putin. It is vital for the world that there be a strong leader in Russia. This is part of the world dynamic. When you have the Anglo-Americans going insane, nuts, crazy, you must have a counterbalancing force in Moscow that can introduce the element of fear and doubt into the calculations of those Anglo-Americans. A couple of examples. At one point, Bush came out, this was Bush the Younger, saying, when it comes to Iran, I guess it was by then, Iran, all options are on the table. All options are on the table. Putin heard that and he said, take them off the table because they lead to a world catastrophe, or words to that effect. And in the spring, summer of 2007, when the threat to Iran was at its height, this is when Putin made a visit to Tehran and met with Ahmadinejad. So that it doesn't commit Russia to do anything, but it introduces the element of doubt. It therefore deters the insanity of the Anglo-Americans. You can see how the world system with the strong Soviet Union actually functioned on the whole better than the current unipolar one. The unipolar one is not working, and therefore there have to be centers of resistance, and therefore centers of resistance and counterbalancing. This has to start with Moscow because this is the one place that's got the size, the tradition, the national pride, the undefeated qualities, and the guts, right? To come out, the aplomb, let us say, to come out and say no to the Anglo-American. So there will be an election next year. Let's hope. We see a report from an Australian newspaper that Putin is actually going to contend for the presidency. Well, that would be something for the world. We also see the Khodorkovsky campaign. The Anglo-Americans love the thieving oligarch Khodorkovsky. If they could get him out of jail, this guy who wanted to have a coup, he's a great friend of the rule of law. Yeah, he wanted to have a coup in Russia. He wanted to sell the oil of Siberia to Chevron. Great guy. He wanted to rape Russia across 10 time zones. Khodorkovsky, if they could get him out of jail, they would try to build a color revolution around him. Yes, indeed. That's exactly what they would do. A couple of other things. Berlusconi complains to Obama, saying, oh, I'm being oppressed by these radical judges, right, these characters in the toga. Berlusconi, Obama knows everything that's happening to you because his regime is doing it. It is the CIA who runs those Maoist judges in Milan. That is why they are anti-state. This is the CIA anti-state line, the anti-big government line of the CIA. That is what they want to do. They want to bring down Berlusconi, and they're using those judges. So this sums up Berlusconi's problem quite neatly. He's appealing for help to precisely the person who is doing this stuff. Doesn't Berlusconi see it? Help him see it. We'll be back in a minute.